Hi, and welcome to On the Couch, Conversations with Brenda Porter. Today's guest is Akbar Imhotep. He is a storyteller, a poet, a puppeteer, and a toastmaster, and has been doing this work for a long time. He's extraordinary. Welcome, Akbar.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, you sent me an outline that chronicles your high school play all the way up until today. Tell me a little bit about this.
Yeah, the outline that I sent you is for a memoir. Well, I could do memoirs in different areas, but this one is going to be about my artistic life, which starts with my senior play in high school, May 1969. And it was in that play where I had auditioned for the lead role. But my homeboy, who I was literally living with at the time, got the lead role. And I got to be sound effects. Myself and two other guys. The play was called The Storm by Philip Hayes Dean.
Oh, yeah.
And we got to be the wind or the sound effects. And what I realized that being in backstage, making the sound, was that the sound effects drove the play. And it interests me in not just being out front to be or not to be, oh, I'm gonna die, but the stuff that's happening behind the scenes. So I often say to people, I'm as comfortable in the spotlight as I am backstage.
That's wonderful. And you have
And it
been
started right
doing,
there with that play.
you have been doing things in front of and behind for a long time now. I can't even remember when we met. It seems like I've just known you forever. Um, but we are home folk, uh, and you, I think, when you and I just mentioned some puppetry, I think I got to know you even better through this at the Center for Puppetry Art when you were doing your puppetry. I was doing mine. You were doing storytelling all over the place. So I want to talk about your storytelling. But
Yes, what was the character you did? Was it Harriet? Was the
uh,
storyteller?
with the Center for Puppetry Arts,
No, you did storytelling at the center?
I did puppetry at the center.
You did puppetry at the center.
And I know that you came in and did some workshops and some work there while I was there. And you've done some puppet shows there as well. Um, so yeah, I did. I worked there almost about 4 years.
What
Yeah,
years?
I did. My last year was 96, 97. So I did 4 years prior to that.
Oh, I miss you. My life at the Center for Puppetry Arts started in '79. And I started touring with the Vagabond Marionettes. I don't know if they still existed when you were there in the '90s, but I did 2 years of on the road traveling. Loved it. And then I became a part of the resident company. And so anyway, that lasted for 4 wonderful years. As I tell people, I was born both as a storyteller and a puppeteer at the Center for Puppetry Arts. I was doing puppetry when my puppeteer friends asked me had I ever tried storytelling, which I had. I was just an actor out of work doing puppetry until I got back on the stage. But as life would have it, I learned me some Nigerian folk tales, and I went straight from out of work actor, employed puppeteer, to storyteller looking for work. That's been my journey. Matter of fact, I just interviewed with someone from the center back on the 18th and pretty much kind of talked about my journey, but it was pretty much focused on my days at the center. But out of work actor really loved the puppetry because to me, it was just acting through the puppets. I have some actor friends, they won't look at a puppet because they don't think it's real theater.
Oh, I learned so much as an actor through trying to make that puppet emote without being able to put it in my body. It's like you had to put it in the puppet body, so it had to be in your voice. And how do you make that clear? How do you make that clear to the audience? And so I learned a lot. I
Oh,
learned.
I'm telling you. Oh, that 4 or 5 year actually went longer, but actually on the payroll. That it enhanced what I thought I knew about theater so much. And then it fed into my storytelling. As I look back on my journey, it kind of all flows together. Wanted to be an actor and thought I was a halfway decent method actor. And then putting puppets in my hand, and whether it was marionettes or rods or hands, what I really love is objects.
Oh.
Being able to just take something, you know, glasses, and maybe, I can see this right here as I talk to you as two people probably having a conversation. And imagine if one of them had on dark glasses and another one just had on regular glasses, and I could have. I like found object theater. I
Ah.
like it all. But of course, we did more marionettes, and then we went to giant rods. Okay, I love puppetry.
So you see, I have no experience with marionettes, and they scare me. They truly just scare me. Oh, and all those strings and making them make no, that they scare me.
Yeah, Vince Anthony used to say you have to learn how to play the instrument.
Yes.
And so the puppet, just like directors would tell us our bodies and our voices and our imaginations are instruments. But then I was able to translate this into the puppet. Don't get me to talk about this. I loved it. I still do.
You said it informed your storytelling. So you started storytelling. You are a fabulous storyteller. You tell mostly African American stories. Is that true?
Well, I do a mix. And here's how the whole journey about the stories that I tell. I have worked at the Center for Puppetry Arts for 6 years, and we did the quote unquote classics: Pinocchio, Cinderella, Snow White, Aladdin, and about 5 or 6 others. And so when I started to be a storyteller, I said I'm gonna bring African folk tales to the table. And that was basically what I did. And I somehow ended up at the Wren's Nest. And of course, that was the Brer Rabbit tales. And they'll say Universal and whatever, but they're pretty much known as Uncle Remus tales.
Right.
And so I was telling my African folk tales when I went there, and the executive director said to me, real softly and sweetly, Akbar, what are you going to tell some Uncle Remus tales? All right. So I started, and the complete tales is about 200 plus stories. So I read through all those and I picked some that I liked. And I started telling them. And then the same executive director gave me a charge or a task. She wanted me to find some African folk tales that were parallel to the Uncle Remus tales,
Mm.
which I was easily able to do.
Right.
The very first one that I found was the smart turtle, and I won't try to tell it to you, but when I do it, I say to my audience, it's the great 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 grandfather of a story that we all know in the South, and it's a early version of the Tar Baby.
Uh-huh.
And well, it's called a smart turtle, but the turtle gets captured, and the guy says, I'm gonna put you in a pot and stew you. And the turtle says, yes, yes, put me in a pot, but please don't throw me in the river. He says, I'm gonna take your shell off. He says, yes, 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 take my shell, but please, 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 don't throw me in the river. And after you go through all this stuff, guess what the village decides to do? To throw him in the
In
river.
the river.
And when he throws him in the river, this is what the turtle says. Thank you. Didn't you know I was born and bred in the riverbed? And that old turtle swam away and was never seen in that village again. Now, when I found that story, I said, okay, I got it. And it kind of took away some of my apprehension about telling the tar baby story. And it wasn't so much about stereotypes. Everybody knew it.
Right.
Everybody comes to the restless knows the tar baby already. And at that point in my life, I wasn't comfortable telling people a story that I knew they knew already. And so I had to learn how to have fun and make sure my audience have fun too. So
Wow.
anyway.
Now not too long ago, didn't they um, place a day as the Akbar Day, National Akbar Day? Was it at the Ren's Nest?
Uh, I, I love that. I wish we could have called it national. With the virtual platform, it may have been International Day. But what they did, I'm trying to say the last week of September, they called it Akbar Imhotep Week.
Week. Okay.
And Akbar Imhotep Week. And it was kind of a marketing thing, but a tribute kind of thing too. I appreciate it and accept it. But the Resistance has gone through some real massive organizational changes in the last year. And so the marketing people and a board member and looking at ways to build audience and in community engagement. And they had already interviewed me about my experience at the Resistance because I've been there for 35 years. I started there in fall of 85. And so what Jim said to me, he said, well, I think we're going to do a tribute to you for something. So that was in July, just the idea. And like you said, last week of September, we had Akbar Imhotep Week at the Ren's Nest.
What a wonderful honor. Right. So storytelling, puppetry, poetry. You are a poet. Tell me a little bit
Hey,
about
girl,
poet, the kind of poetry that you write.
I write I write poetry just about stuff that just hit me. And I'll tell you a little story about that. She's deceased now, but there was a woman who lived here for a minute named Mildred Thompson. And I somehow, during that era of my life, I guess late 80s, early 90s, I would end up in these salons with Mildred and other artists, and I would read my poetry. And one time Mildred cut me off. She said, we don't want to hear the news. We don't want to hear the news. Please don't tell us the news. And so, as I thought about that, I said, I write about life as I see it, but however dark or however painful it is, I try to give everything I write an uplifting ending. So, like I wrote something about the whole George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, all of them. And it took me several weeks to get the concept. And I didn't want to write a they keep killing us kind of poem. And the idea came to me that George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and a whole lot more whose name I can't call right now were like modern day sacrifices. So I start running this parallel between them and Jesus as being sacrifices.
Wow.
The poem I eventually wrote the title is Modern Day Sacrifices. And I kind of go through it of things that happened, but their sacrifices were meant, and, and I and I don't want to talk down about anybody's death, but their sacrifice was for the benefit of the race if we embrace it as a sacrifice and not as them damn police that killed another brother. Because it's bigger than that. And so I didn't want to write a poem about another brother, sister, brother being killed, but Spirit wouldn't let me do that anyway. Spirit said, this is bigger than bad police. Their death and sacrifice is something else. And I wish I had it to read it, but because I had to get the concept first. I talked with my daughter and I said, I want to write this poem, but I don't have a concept for it. And slowly the concept evolved. And I'm being kind of redundant. But in their deaths, I saw the same kind of sacrifice as the death of the one they call the Savior.
Well, that's interesting because Impact Theater is doing a piece called Racial Reconciliation. And Charlene Holmes wrote 6 short pieces for us. And one of the pieces is called The Sacrifice. And it is about a young brother who has gotten killed. Yeah.
I got you.
Mm-hmm.
I understand it. Yes. And so even though Mildred Thompson, God bless her soul, accused me of writing about the news, she was right. But it's not like defund the police are bad. No. It's about this death happened. I can't pretend that it didn't. I'm not going to write about roses and rainbows and sugar plums when life is happening.
Right.
But how do I take this experience and speak encouragement instead of inspiring anger?
I would love for you.
Sometimes I will write about roses, particularly women. I love writing about women.
See, it's that romantic person that lives right in that body.
Hey, girl, I give it my best shot. I was trying to think of a poem that this sister who I'll never know inspired. I'm basically what happened, I'm not a sexist, and I'm not a lot of things, but one thing I am is respectful of women. And I was just doing my morning walk one Saturday morning. And as I was doing my morning walk, a car pulled up. It probably was an Uber or a Lyft. And I'm walking this way and the Uber's coming this way. And 2 sisters came out the house, one in front of the other one. And then as I got closer, I got kind of close to the second one. And as I got close to her, she was about to get in her car. She had on some cutoffs that showed half of her buttocks. And I was like, I don't need to see this. I really didn't. I wasn't in the mood to see that. So again, it took me about 2 weeks to get my concept. And I wish I had thought about all the things I was going to talk about, and I would at least have the title of the poem. But I wrote a poem about that sister showing me half of her butt when I didn't want to see it. And it was a nice
Well,
butt.
that's most gentlemen would be happy to have seen it.
But I didn't at that moment. I'm just trying to get up the hill, and I got time for nothing else. Anyway, when I get off this thing with you, I'm gonna send you a copy of both of them, the George Floyd and the I can't even remember the title of the sister poem. It's like, what's an old man to do?
I'm sorry, just one moment. I I'll probably have to cut that and come back in. Um, the my Zoom account is being used for the rehearsals for this project that I told you about. I did not realize that we were overlapping. They just texted me and said, "We can't get in your Zoom." But I told them, "Give me a few minutes. I don't want to cut you and I totally short." So I I will get back with them in just about 5 minutes. I want to make sure that we cover some of the things that we need to cover. You are also Toastmaster. So
Yes.
I don't know you as a Toastmaster. So talk to me about
All
that.
right, Brenda, I guess the creator just leads me to things that I end up just loving. I went to a Toastmaster meeting totally on a whim. Janice Andrews, the president of George Andrews, who the wife of George Andrews, who was the president of Capital City Bank,
Mm.
when she was on the board of directors of the Wren's Nest, she came to hear me perform and she invited me to a Toastmaster meeting. I, I, I didn't know what Toastmaster was, but she on the board, her husband run a bank. I go. And I get there and they have a certified speaker. Now, a certified speaker is a public speaker, motivational, inspirational, but they go through a Toastmaster program when you
Uh-huh.
get there, certified speaker. And I enjoyed Johnny the Transition Man Campbell so much. I said, I can do that. I want to learn how to do that. And so my kind of running joke is 10 years later, I'm still trying to learn how to do it.
No, you have mastered it, I am sure.
Well, I'm getting there, but nobody's giving me $1,500 and $2,000 to speak yet.
Yet, you just never know.
It's coming. It's coming.
So,
So that was July. I joined in August. I joined in August 2010. So I'm 10 years in,
wow.
and I've met so many wonderful people. I've heard so many wonderful speeches. I'm literally right now working on my third DTM. Now in Toastmasters, it's actually Distinguished Toastmaster. And it's kind of like the Academy Award or the Tony Award for Toastmasters.
Mm-hmm.
It's the highest education award that you can get. But I don't know why they call it the highest. I got my first one in 2014. So what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Well, the lady I sat next to, she said, start again. And she was like, had been everything, district director, regional advisor, international director. I was fortunate enough to be sitting at the table with her when they announced that I had got my first DTM. And so she said, now it's time to start again. I said, okay. So I went ahead, I was working on the second one, and I had so much fun. And what I realized was after earning the highest degree, and I guess it's kind of like a actor who gets that first Oscar, you realize like, God, I got so much more to learn.
Yeah.
Even though I got this Oscar, the journey doesn't stop here. And that's how I felt. And so I went ahead and in 2018, I earned another one. So now I'm really clicking. And so I said, well, what do I do now? When Toastmasters answered the question, they rolled out a whole new program. In other words, the program that I earned the first two in, they put on the shelf and they started something else. So this gave me an opportunity to embrace the new program
Uh-huh.
and pursue the highest degree again. And God willing, next spring or summer, I'll get my third one. And
Wow.
guess what I do after I do that? I will start
So
on number.
there are so many things that I want to ask you. I am wondering um, if I can give you a call back since my platform, unfortunately, is the one that they use for rehearsal, and they are into their rehearsal. I don't know how long their rehearsal will be, but I'd love, because I understand you've done some work with, you and John have gone into the prisons and done some work, and I just want to find out about all of that. May I call you back?
You can call me back anytime. You know, I always want to talk to a homegirl. So
Okay.
you just give me a heads up so I can make sure I get in front of the computer. I'm going to be watching the football, so if I don't hear the phone at first, I'll check, but we can talk anytime.
Okay. I'll call you back, and if you're watching football, I'll wait until the football game's over. That's the way that works.
Okay. So let's talk whenever you're ready.
So thank you so much, and I'll be back with you. And I'm so
You
sorry.
know you're welcome, my friend. All right. All right.
Okay, so as you can see, I've changed my location. There were a few little technical difficulties. So I am still here with Akbar Imhotep, who is telling me about his Toastmastering um, levels and experiences. He has shared with us his storytelling and some stuff about his storytelling, his poetry, and his puppetry. Um, and he, Akbar, you're just amazing because you keep adding things to your wheelhouse, and that's always very interesting.
Hey, it's been a straight shot, man. I remember Barrow wrote when I was president of the National Association of Black Storytellers. They actually asked me to write the president's comments. And I started out, it's been a straight shot on a crooked road. And I went through all the things that I had gone to get to that point. And it all starts with a high school play. But fortunately for me, it's kind of it's one rope with many strings. And that's how I feel about my art, my life, and life in general, really.
So I know that you and John Doyle have done some work in the prisons. Now, do you go in and do storytelling with them, writing with them, poetry? What is it that you do?
Now minor correction. It really technically wasn't prison. It
Okay.
was it was a juvenile mentoring program, and the program was called TLC, and I guess that meant tender loving care. It was held on Saturdays down at the Juvenile Justice Center at Pryor and Fulton. And these young men, and I learned the meaning of a word in working with them, had been adjudicated. And how I explained that to my friend is they did it, they just not in jail. Because give them a chance. If they came to this mentoring program, their records would be expunged or locked up or whatever. So you had this young man, and when we first started, there were more women from like 12 to 18. And we would go in on Saturday and interact with them, talk. John did many more creative things than I did. Actually, he was there first. I went there from a group called Concerned Black Clergy.
Mm-hmm.
I had come to the meeting. We need men, we need tutors, we need people to be mentors. And John had met a wonderful woman named Hilda Tatum at the friend's house out in DeKalb. And she had invited John. So we ended up at the same place. And the story of my life is I can't go anywhere and not run into somebody I know from somewhere else. I go into a room of absolute strangers, and who's sitting on the other side of the room except my Kaiser friend. John and I became like brothers for the short while we worked together. And so it made my assimilation or connection with the group much easier. And so we did a wonderful thing. My time goes so quickly. I started in 2013, and that was like September, October. And by the next spring, we actually wrote a play called Broken Shackles. And
Mm.
it was really, really fun. I got to work with John, and another young man came in named Jamez, who also worked with John at Kaiser. And we took those young men and wrote that little script called Broken Shackles and actually performed it. And then things got crazy, you know. We didn't, I kind of, anyway, we didn't get to do it a second time. And we tried to do some other ones. And I knew, see, we tried to do another one. And what happened was when you're doing a play, everybody can't direct the play. And we would do things but to get feedback from other people within the program. And
Mm.
everybody had an idea of what to do. And I don't,
Of
you
course
know,
they do.
whatever people suggest, but as a director, it comes down to one voice, one vision. And the problem I had was when they came up with the script, there was a lot of profanity. And I knew we were going to be doing it at a church. Okay,
Oh.
okay. Here's the idea. You got all this profanity, and I said, you know, we can't do that in a church. And somebody, another adult, not the children, another adult. Why not? That's how people talk. I say, that may be how people talk, but we don't need to create a piece with our young men to do in a church. We just don't want to be real, you know. So I'm just about everybody volunteering. I'm not officially the director, paid staff member. I'm just another volunteer. But I know what I'm not going to sign my name to. And so there was so many people inputting and telling us what to do, man. I just said, y'all can have it. You know, I'll do whatever I can, but I'm not gonna do it if I don't have peace of mind and feel right about what I'm doing. So I was not. First of all, I'm not gonna listen to every Tom, Dick, and Omawali tell me how to direct the show. I'll work with John. John and I have created so many projects together because we like have a kindred spirit. And you got an idea, I got an idea. Let's do both of them.
Right.
And well, that does make a little bit more sense. You know, we can go there, but you got A, B, C, 4. So that piece didn't work out.
Oh.
But and I went until I got sick. I always said over them since 2013, actually 12. My health has kind of gone up and down. And I was in that program, and I wanted to be of service to the young man because I had problems with my son when he was that age. So I knew if I just hung in there, I might make a difference. But when my energy started fading, and I didn't think the young men were listening to me, I wanted to hear, not so much not listening, but really didn't want to hear what I had to say. I said, I'll let it go. And that's when I stopped. So 2013 to 2017, I worked pretty much every Saturday with that program with John.
Wow. Did you see a difference in the young men um, from when they started and when those who did finish? Did you see a difference in their thoughts, their attitudes, their actions?
And I want to answer this carefully because I always want to speak speak uplifting about our young people because I said doing not with the children there, but with the adults. How do you measure your impact?
Right.
Because week to week, month to month, and then not only that, you get so many different ones. You get different. You don't have the same. I didn't have the same boys that whole 4 years. And so what somebody said to me that gave me a level of comfort, they said, you never know what you say that takes root. So something I could have said to somebody in 2013 or 14 may have made a difference 5 years later. So answer to your question is, could I say a measurable difference?
Mm.
Do I hope that all of us volunteers, John, Rohab, all of us, Ian, all of us, I think just being there, and I should call the name of Samuel Washington. Samuel was the director of the program, but I think he was like a probation officer or something who worked there 5 days a week. But on Saturday, he would come, and Friday, because they did something on Fridays that I didn't play chess, so I didn't go to it. On Fridays, whichever other young man wanted to learn how to play chess, John and Samuel and others would meet with them on Friday. I couldn't give them Friday and Saturday. If I played chess, I may have been willing to go on Friday. Matter of fact, when we were working on the play, I went on Fridays so I could talk to them. And the piece that we created involved a game of chess. All I knew in chess are the moves. But I wrote this piece because I got so many inside looks at chess. And the whole conflict was one young man that came back and he had an argument with another one. And he went outside and he got a gun and he came back wanting to do some damage. And the conflict was about old beef. And so we keep working the metaphor. If this was chess, what would you do? What's your next move? Okay. Are you going to allow this situation to checkmate you? Or can you get yourself out of this? Oh, it's wonderful.
I love it.
I wrote it. But to be able to take something, the game that they were learning how to play, and then create a script around the thing of thinking before you act or make your next move, to me was very exciting.
Oh, I would think that in itself would have changed their lives, whether right then and there or later on. Yeah, you might be.
I think so. And I will say one young man, well, this was talking about measurable. I talk about measurables a lot because I heard the guy who was president of Morehouse School of Medicine say at a community meeting, this is like doctor, and we just regular community folks. And he said, if you can't measure it, why are you doing it? It made so much sense. Like you asked me just a few minutes ago, did I see any difference? And I said, well, not measurable. But then I do have a couple. One young man who was in that play, had been in a lot of stuff over the years. Actually, the other one too, measurable differences made. This young man, I probably shouldn't call his name and I won't.
Right.
But he had been in the program for several years. He was one of the older children. And he ended up being like one of the lead players in the script and maybe one of the central characters, okay? And so he was that. So I'll tell you about the measurable distance for him after I tell you about CJ. I don't really know his name, but they call him CJ. We'd had two people to play the counter role to the main role, and both of them fell by the wayside. One of them wasn't very strong anyway, I should say that, but he wasn't. And another one was strong enough and clear enough, but he just stopped coming, stopped rehearsing. So we got another one of the older guys who had been in the program for a while, and he literally learned the part in a week. And so me and John working, man, and partner done work on his own to be ready, even though he only had the script for a week. And he just amazed all of us. And these two measurables I can identify and speak to. This young man, Rico, who had been in the program for a while, when he graduated out of that program, he'd have made it between doing something. He ended up becoming an apprentice, an electrical apprentice.
Mm.
And so as the years went on by from 14, he would come back to visit to talk about his job and being able to help his mother do things and get the house and all that. So he had become like totally away from the young juvenile that we had at 16 or 17, and now to a contributing adult at 20, 21. That was Rico. CJ, the one who surprised the hell out of all of us, because he took that role and just wrapped it up. And and I can't tell you about him going to an apprentice program and all that, but I can tell you about a young man who became very respectful and not just in a juvenile rut. Maybe it was not being 16 anymore and being 19, or maybe just I did something positive. These people encouraged me and allowed me to do this thing. So I know I can do something else other than be in trouble. And every time he sees me on the street, the last time I was at the CVS in West End, and he drove by and he blew his horn. Bah, 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 what's up, brother? Bah! So the answer to your question, I'm going to say yes. I can't say widespread and everybody, but at least 2 cases I can point to a measurable difference in attitude and spirit. And actually, there was a third one too.
Oh.
There was a third one too. And I think it's part of getting older and the fact that people encourage them. When everybody early in 13, 14, everybody talking about won't make money, won't do this. Potty said, I want to be a chef. That was his thing. He wanted to be a chef. And so as we progressed between 13 and 14, I guess about maybe 16, he had graduated from the program and went into training, management training for Waffle House. And so I would run into him every now and then, and he would tell me about his work at Waffle House. Okay? So as I think about it, answer to your question is yes.
Well, I've got a couple more questions for you. One is, how has working virtually affected, because I'm assuming that you're working virtually as most artists are. How's it affected your work?
I've done a few virtual things, and it's a little different, but you have to learn the medium. I'm a kind of energetic storyteller. I like being able to look at who I'm talking to and call on people to ask questions or ask people questions and wait for them to answer. Can't do any of that virtual. I can ask questions, but I'm not gonna get no answers. And I was doing something for a lady out of Virginia. You never know who's gonna teach you a powerful lesson. And so we had this virtual rehearsal to get ready actually for the actual concert. And so I sit down in front of my little laptop. I got my little story, and I just started telling. And they said, Akbar, look at the camera, look at the camera. I said, what? They said, look directly at the camera. I said, you want me to just stop and just look at the camera? She said, yes. She said, when you're looking down and you're looking away, you're not talking to us. So where's my little paper? I ended up making me a little face and cut a hole in it and put it right over my lens. And from that point on, whenever I did something virtual, I would look directly at the eye. Totally different. Matter of fact, I said when I complained when I was getting direction, I said, that's not my style. That's not what I do. And the woman patiently, motherly, for the medium, you really need to look directly at the camera. She the one like, I don't care what your style is, you need to look at the camera. It's like, well, to make this work, you need to look directly at the camera. And so the next time when we actually did the concert, I had my little face with my little eye, and I just sit right there, look right at that camera, and just had me a ball. I like it. I like it. Some people say we probably never go back to normal, but I know one thing: I may not ever go to another Toastmasters meeting. I can sit right here at my desk and look at everybody at the meeting, do my speech, and I only have to sit down. But most of the time, I'll be sitting down. I like interacting with people, but my car's been down for quite a while, and I have to lot an hour and a half to get anywhere. But I probably won't be going to any Toastmasters meeting on the bus.
So before we close, tell me, what projects are you working on?
Okay, I got about 8 projects.
I knew it. I knew it. I knew it.
I literally got 2 books that are ready to be published. I got a book of poetry that I want to publish probably late 2021 that I'm selecting the poems for now. I got this idea to write my artistic memoir about 2 weeks ago, and I outlined it. I sent you that if you get a chance to see it. And that's a 2021 project as well. And I'm probably the most, and then I reached out. We started on this project in August. We're supposed to tape it in October, but something happened and they put the brakes on. I'm doing a portrayal of Donald Lee Hollowell. I don't know if you know that name or not. But Donald Lee Hollowell has played a role in both you and our lives, as well as anybody who went to the University of Georgia, Georgia State. Donald Lee Hollowell was the lead lawyer on the Charlene Hunter and Hamilton Holmes case.
Oh.
All right. So he was part of that. And most people would know him for that. But he was also the lawyer for the Atlanta student movement. When the Atlanta student movement started doing things here in Atlanta, while Martin Luther King was doing things everywhere else, Donald L. Hollowell ended up being their lawyer. And so I'm doing a portrayal of him for the 1619 project. So I said 8, but it's only about 5. My Donald L. Hollowell portrayal, my 2 books that are ready to be published. I just don't have the money to make it happen right now. And my other 2 projects, that one is just an idea, and for 10, it's going to be a book of 70 poems during my 70th year, and the other one's going to be an artistic memoir. And wow. I call it My Future in Show Business. And this is why I call it that. In summer 1970, I participated in a theater camp. And because I couldn't sing, one of the teachers, not one of the students, not an outsider, one of the teachers told me I had no future in show business. That was 1970. I still kind of kept them getting involved, but because this teacher had told me I had no future, I didn't make it my number 1 thing for the next 7 years. In 1976, I went to a summer theater camp at Spelman and reclaimed my calling. Because after that, I met Walter Dallas, and Walter made me a charter member of the proposition. And not only did he do that, he made me feel that I had a place in the theater. And the rest is history. I withdrew from graduate school where I was studying to be a math teacher and started my life as a struggling artist.
You should have stuck to that math, man. Stick to the math.
Yeah,
Follow the
I
money.
probably would have had a nice little life, and I often joke, I probably would have got married to the woman I was so deeply in love with at the time, and we would have probably had us a house and 3.5 children, a couple of cars, and I probably had a very miserable life that I would have always wanted to be in the theater.
Well, I am glad that you chose to be in the theater and to be a
Yes, I
storyteller,
probably
a
wouldn't have missed you,
puppeteer, a
girl.
poet. Um, and thank you, Akbar, so much for taking the time today. For you, our audience, please continue to join us on the couch and